We have a huge problem in unfunded liabilities in this country, and not just in this country, but in the Western world generally. Considering all the stuff we just discussed, how serious do you think that looming crisis in unfunded liabilities is, and how do you feel that our political system is up to the challenge of dealing with it?
I think it's very serious. The problem resides in what are called defined benefit plans. Defined benefit plans are pension plans where every employee is promised a pension which is a function of his terminal salary multiplied by years worked. So I worked at Citibank for 17 years, and I now already am receiving a pension equal to 34% of my last 5 years' average salary, 2% a year. Defined benefit. When I sit here today and I get my monthly check from Citibank, I haven't been there in 33 years, it seems almost nutty. It seems overly generous that they're giving me money today for not working there. Well, guess what? Everybody else caught on to that. Most corporations have closed their defined benefit pension plans. Governments have not. So the big, open, and growing defined benefit pension plans are state and city for the most part. And they put in this much money today. They're going to have to pay you that much money when you retire. The difference will be made up by further funding and investment returns. They need a return. It's called the actuarial assumption to get this much money to be worth that much money X years out. And today it's about 7.5%. You can't easily and safely make 7.5% today. And most funds, even if you state and city funds, even if you assume 7.5%, they're underfunded anyway. It's going to be a big problem when it arrives, when these funds pay out the benefits. Now, a lot of states and cities have tried renegotiating or restructuring their pension funds. There's been some success. Some states and cities have gone bankrupt in part to escape these obligations, and they will continue to do so. Illinois, which is one of the less funded plans, insisted on a mandatory restructuring, and the court said no. You can't do that because the state constitution says that they can't escape their pension obligations. So it is going to be a big problem. Your second question was, can we solve this politically? Right now, no.
No, definitely not right now.
I mean, you don't hear any discussion of this. You don't hear any discussion of the perilous funding situation of Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid. They're all heading for trouble. The math is inescapable, but nobody's doing anything about it. And this is, when 30, 40 years from now, when we're in the soup, people are going to look back and they're going to say, what was that generation doing in the early part of the 21st century about their debts to us? And in fact, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're borrowing money at the federal level and other levels to spend. Part of the tax cut that was passed in December was a decision to increase the deficit, increase the debt, to give it out as tax cuts. And so it's a matter of generational equity. The current generation is borrowing to have more stuff today, more spending, lower taxes, etc. And they're going to put the burden on the future generation. And there's a lot of questions about fairness with that. I remember when I was a boy, there were debates about whether it's proper for nations to have permanent national debt. Proper. Seems nobody's worried about that anymore.
No, quite the contrary. In fact, there are schools of thought that take the view that public debt doesn't matter at all. I don't know if you're familiar with some of these ideas, but they do seem somewhat ludicrous. Again, they have some of these qualities of bubble thinking.
Yes.
Impossible ideas that it doesn't matter simply because the government has the capacity to print the money to make good on the nominal debt level.
Yeah, well, some do and some don't. The nations of Europe, Greece would have been fine. Greece would have avoided its suffering as an austerity if they would have just printed more money, but there's no more drachma around, so they couldn't. Other countries can print currencies, but the world may not accept them without severe devaluations. It happens right now that the U.S. Can print more money. It's the reserve currency of the world, the dollar, and people accept them without severe devaluations. Is that going to be without limitation? It's not clear.